Hello everyone, welcome to Bajirao Ias Academy. You all knew that we have been discussing 2025 question papers of UPSC mains examination. And today also we have some questions. So let's understand the demand of these questions and the theme of the question. And we will also understand the structuring and presentation of the questions which were asked. Now the first question is, discuss the nature of Jammu and Kashmir Legislative Assembly after the Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act 2019 and briefly describe the powers and functions of the Assembly of the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. So this question has two parts. Firstly, you have to discuss the nature of Jammu and Kashmir Legislative Assembly. So after the Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act 2019, and in the second part of the answer, you need to describe the powers and functions of the Assembly of the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. So first, briefly introduced Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act of 2019. And then you have to address these two parts of the answer, and then you need to write the conclusion. In the body part of the answer, the essential components including the nature of assembly, because it has been asked in the question, and then you need to write about the composition, power of the legislative assembly, and the executive, legislature, and the financial powers. And remember that after the Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act of 2019, the Union Territory of Ladakh has been created without a legislature, but Jammu and Kashmir is also a Union Territory with the legislature. Right? So I hope you have understood this question. And in the introduction of this answer, as I've already told you, that you have to briefly introduce the Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act of 2019. And in fact, as I have already explained, that this Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act 2019 transformed the erstwhile state of Jammu and Kashmir into two union territories. The Union Territory of Ladakh without a legislature, and the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir with the legislature. And in fact, so this has actually marked a shift from a special statehood that was enjoyed by the Jammu and Kashmir under Article 370 of the Indian Constitution to a union territory that was set up under Article 239A of the Indian Constitution, much more similar to Puducherry. Right? So I hope it is clear for you. Now in the introduction, so there is no need to make it more and more complex. Make it as simple as possible and address the key theme of the question, and that would be sufficient. Right? So for other details, you can also go through this as well. Right? So because the Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act 2019, it has abrogated or revoked Article 370 of the Indian Constitution, and this Article 370 of the Indian Constitution provided special status to Jammu and Kashmir. So by abrogation of Article 370, this special status was removed. Right? Now, no a dual citizenship. Right? So after the abrogation of Article 370, there will be no dual citizenship. So earlier, Jammu and Kashmir as a state that was enjoying the special status used to have a dual citizenship. Now there will be no more dual citizenship for the people of Jammu and Kashmir. Secondly, the central laws can directly apply as well. And earlier, the central laws were not directly applicable for the Jammu and Kashmir Union Territory unless the state legislative assembly specifically provides for the implementation of the laws passed by the parliament. And now there will be no separate laws for Jammu and Kashmir, and Indian citizens from other states can buy land and property in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. And in fact, there will be no two flags for them as well, because earlier they used to have their own flag and the national flag as well. And elections will take place once in every 5 years. Centre can even declare the financial emergency under Article 360 of the Indian Constitution. However, before abrogation of Article 370, there was no provision of Article 360 that will be imposed on Jammu and Kashmir. And in fact, the police of the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir will be managed by the center. Right? So I hope you have understood this. In the body part of the answer, as we have discussed in the basic framework, you have to mention the nature of the Assembly of the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, and in fact it has a unicameral legislative assembly. Now first of all, we'll understand the difference between the bicameral legislative assembly and unicameral legislative assembly. So with respect to the bicameral legislative assembly, where you will have two houses, the state legislative assembly and the state legislative council. But when we say unicameral legislative assembly, there is only one legislative assembly or one house. And in fact, initially there were 107 seats with 24 seats vacant due to the Pakistan occupied Kashmir, because some seats are also given to the Pakistani occupied Kashmir as well. However, these 24 seats are vacant because these seats were given to the Pakistan occupied areas. However, after 2022 delimitation, seats increased to 114. Right? So now the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir and the legislature have 114 seats, and out of 114 seats, 90 seats are elected and 24 reserved for the Pakistan occupied Kashmir, 7 seats for scheduled caste and 9 seats for the scheduled tribes. So this is the nature of the assembly of the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. So let's understand the tenure and composition of the state legislative assembly. Initially, we have discussed the tenure of the state legislative assembly is 5 years. However, earlier the term of the state legislative assembly before the State Reorganization Act was passed, the tenure was 6 years, but now the tenure will be 5 years. And in fact, the lieutenant governor will be appointed by the president, much like other union territories, and he can even nominate members, including up to 2 women if they are underrepresented in the state legislative assembly. And if we talk about the legislative powers, the assembly can legislate on subjects which are in the state list of the 7th schedule of the Indian Constitution. We all knew that in the 7th schedule of the Indian Constitution there are 3 lists: the union list, state list and concurrent list. So therefore the assembly of the union territory can legislate on the subjects which are mentioned in both state list and as well as the concurrent list. However, with respect to matters or subject like public order or police, they have no power to legislate on these matters because they remain with the lieutenant governor and the central government, keeping in mind the law and order in the union territory of Jammu and Kashmir. And then if we talk about the executive authority, the lieutenant governor holds the special discretionary powers, keeping in mind the security needs and the law and order needs of the union territory of Jammu and Kashmir. And if we talk about the special discretionary powers of the lieutenant governor, he will be having the special discretionary powers over policing, public order, bureaucracy and all the fiscal matters. And in fact, the financial bills which are introduced in the state legislative assemblies, they also require the lieutenant governor's prior recommendation as well, right? So I hope you have understood the powers of the state legislative assembly of the union territory of Jammu and Kashmir. And apart from that, if we talk about the financial powers, the assembly passes budgets and it has no control over many local laws as well. However, the lieutenant governor's assent is required on certain bills as well. And if we talk about the representative role of the state legislative assembly of the union territory of the Jammu and Kashmir, so despite there are a lot of limitation, the assembly provides for the democratic representation and the political voice to the people of Jammu and Kashmir, because the Ladakh, again a union territory which has no legislative assembly, but Jammu and Kashmir as a union territory provided for the legislative assembly. So that means it provides a democratic representation for the people and the political voice as well, right? So therefore, within the union territory framework, they will enjoy the political voice and also the democratic representation. So this is how you have to explain the nature of the legislative assembly of the union territory of Jammu and Kashmir and its powers. And then in the conclusion, you have to mention that in the union territory of Jammu and Kashmir and its Legislative Assembly post 2019 reflects a UT model with a limited autonomy under the significant central oversight. So due to the security reasons and the law and order reasons, it is important that there is a need for a central oversight over the Jammu and Kashmir. However, the Assembly ensures local representation and lawmaking on several subjects, and the ultimate authority remains with the Lieutenant Governor and Union Government. So therefore, there is a need for balancing the regional aspirations with the national integration of the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. Right? So I hope you have understood the structure, presentation, and the key theme of this particular answer. Now, the next question is about the Attorney General of India, and the question is how Attorney General of India plays a crucial role in guiding the legal framework of the Union government and ensuring sound governance through the legal council. Now, in this context, you have to discuss his responsibilities, his rights, limitations in this regard. Now, first of all, we need to have a model framework for this answer. And in the model framework, Attorney General of India and the constitutional provisions which deals with the office of the Attorney General of India, you just mention it in the introduction. However, in the body part of the answer, so the demand or the key theme of the question that you need to address. Now, firstly, it says the Attorney General of India plays a crucial role in guiding the legal framework of the Union government and also ensuring sound governance through the legal council. So in this backdrop, you need to discuss the responsibilities of the Attorney General of India and the rights Attorney General of India enjoys and what are the limitations that the Attorney General of India have. Right? So therefore, in the body part of the answer, you should include all these different parts. And in the conclusion of this answer, you need to ensure the significance and the importance of the Attorney General of India. Right? So that's how you need to have a basic framework for this particular question. And in the introduction, as I have already told you, that you need to mention the constitutional provision which is related to the Attorney General of India. And if we talk about the Attorney General in India, generally it is the highest law office, or he is the highest law officer in the country. And in fact, the Attorney General of India also serves as a chief legal advisor to the government of India. Right? So Article 76 of the Indian Constitution, it specifically deals with the office of the Attorney General of India. And in fact, the office of Attorney General of India plays a pivotal and a very important role in the legal framework, and he also supports the Union government through the expert legal council. Because whenever needed, he provides the expert advice and expert guidance to the Union government. And in fact, the office of the Attorney General of India, as provided by the Indian Constitution under Article 76, he is also the principal advocate for the Union in the Supreme Court and various other courts across the country. And in fact, the Attorney General also ensures that the government functions within the constitutional and legal bounds as well. So even though it is not generally advised to write such a lengthy introduction, but you can write the crux of this introduction in your answers, so that it will be more impactful and effective. Now, in the body part of the answer, you have to divide this into the component parts, so that the structuring of the answer will be better. And in the first part of the answer, you need to write the responsibilities of the Attorney General of India, because the Attorney General of India will have certain responsibilities as well. Now, if we talk about the responsibilities of the Attorney General of India, so he is the legal advisor to the government of India. In the introduction, we get to know that he is the legal advisor to the government of India, because he advises to the President of India and he also advises to the government of India in general, because there are some legal matters, and if those legal matters are referred to him under Article 76, he provides expert guidance over these legal matters. And apart from that, he also helps ministers draft the legally sound legislations, and those legislations are also very important. Now here we need to talk about one important example as well. Now, the Attorney General was consulted during the abrogation of Article 370. So, we have just discussed that Article 370 of the Indian Constitution deals with the special status provided to the Jammu and Kashmir. Now, after the abrogation of Article 370 of the Indian Constitution, this special status was revoked, and now the Jammu and Kashmir was made a union territory with the legislature. So therefore, the Attorney General is consulted in such things as well. So next, he also represents in courts across the country, right? So in fact, as we have already understood, he represents the union government because he is the highest law officer of the country. So therefore, in all cases, he represents the union government in the Supreme Court, various high courts within the government of India as a party. And apart from that, he also participates in the important constitutional cases that involves the government and important constitutional issues as well. Now, one example is the Attorney General is represented the center in the Ayodhya land dispute and the demonetization case hearings as well, right? So Ayodhya land dispute, we all knew it is related to the masjid and mandir case. And again, when we talk about the demonetization, so highest monetary value currency notes were demonetized, and in fact a lot of people have filed petition against the central government's decision to demonetize the highest value currency notes, right? So however, it is important and essential to mention examples along with each of these points so that your answer would be more and more effective and impactful. Now, in these two cases, the Attorney General represented the union government. So therefore, he represents the union government in all courts across the country. And next, the defending union legislation is another important responsibility of the Attorney General, because when we talk about the defending union legislation, he defends the constitutionality of the legislations that are being passed by the government or the parliament in various courts. For example, in the Right to Privacy case 2017, the Attorney General argued in favor of Aadhaar, and he also cited that on national interest grounds. So he actually supported the Aadhaar, right? So therefore, it ensures that the laws passed by the parliament withstand the judicial scrutiny. Now understand one thing, that the judicial review is a very important provision of the Indian Constitution. Whatever laws which are being passed by the parliament, so they also go for the judicial scrutiny as well. So therefore, Attorney General plays a very important role to protect these laws from the judicial scrutiny, and one such example is Attorney General favoring Aadhaar in the Right to Privacy case of 2017 based on the grounds of national interest. And apart from that, he also participates in the parliamentary proceedings. So even though Attorney General is not a member of either house of the parliament, so he can also take part in the proceedings of the parliament. However, he is not eligible to vote in the both houses of the parliament, right? So he can be invited to speak and participate in the proceedings of the both houses of the parliament. And apart from that, he does not have the voting rights under Article 88 of the Indian Constitution. For example, when it comes to deciding bills, when it comes to no confidence motion, so the Attorney General will not have any voting rights in the parliamentary proceedings, even though he can be part of the parliamentary proceedings. Now, one such example is the Attorney General may clarify the legal implications of the bills during the parliamentary debates. For this particular reason, the Attorney General can also be part of the proceedings of the both houses of the parliament. Now, the second part of the answer, let's understand the rights of the Attorney General of India. And if we talk about the rights of Attorney General of India, so he is actually having a right to audience in all courts across the country, right? The Supreme Court, High Court, and various other courts as well. And in fact, he can also appear in any court of law in India, including the lower courts, if the government is involved into it. Secondly, the Attorney General may appear before the tribunals which are the quasi-judicial bodies and the arbitrators in the international disputes which involves India. So therefore, the right to audience in all courts is the right given to the Attorney General of India as the highest law officer of this country. Secondly, he can also participate in the parliamentary debates as well. As I've already told you that the Attorney General was given the right to be part of the proceedings of the both houses of the parliament without giving the right to vote. So therefore, he can participate in the parliamentary debates, but he cannot vote. And third, he can also hold the private practice as well. So once an individual is appointed as the Attorney General, that does not mean he will be prohibited from holding the private practice. However, unlike a government servant, the Attorney General, once he is appointed to this constitutional office, is not barred from the private legal practice. So that means he will be allowed for the private legal practice as well. However, this is subjected to the certain restrictions. So when I say subjected to the certain restrictions, he cannot advise parties against the government or accept the offices of profit. And in fact, the problem with the offices of the profit is that it may result in the conflict of interest among the government servants. So therefore, there are certain restrictions and limitations on the Attorney General when he is taking up the private practice. And then we need to talk about the limitations of the Attorney General of India. So as a constitutional office, you also have a certain limitations. And if we talk about those limitations, the first limitation is he is not a member of the cabinet. So that thing we should understand. Within the Council of Ministers, there are some ministers who are being called as cabinet along with the Prime Minister. However, the office of the Attorney General is not part of the Union Cabinet. And apart from that, he is not having executive authority as well. This will be another limitation of the Attorney General of India, because he cannot issue orders or take decisions independently. Rather, he only advises the government and the president over the legal matters, right? So these are the other limitations. And in fact, there is also the conflict of interest possibility with respect to the Attorney General of India, because if he take up the office of profit or any other profession which might result in office of profit, that may also result in the conflict of interest as well. Because since the Attorney General can engage in private practice, so there are concerns of conflict of interest they could arise. The example is the former Attorney General Mukul Rohatgi represented the private clients while serving as the Attorney General. And in fact, that was raised several ethical concerns, and it was also raised the concerns regarding the conflict of interest faced by the Attorney General. And then we need to talk about the tenure of the Attorney Generals. So as a highest constitutional office, as a highest law officer of this country, so Attorney General don't have the fixed tenure, and in fact their tenure depends on the pleasure of the president doctrine, right? So as long as you enjoy the pleasure of the president, you will be in the office. However, that essentially means that he or she as an Attorney General can be removed without a fixed term, and that can affect the independence of the office of the Attorney General as well. And similarly, he cannot represent against the government as well, right? So the Attorney General cannot appear against the union government or advise entities that may sue the government of India. So these are the certain limitations of the office of the Attorney General of India. However, if we talk about the conclusion, in the conclusion you need to write the Attorney General of India occupies a constitutionally significant position at the crossroads of law and governance. So therefore, by offering legal advice, defending government actions in courts, and guiding executive through the constitutional complexities, the Attorney General ensures that the rule of law is upheld in the governance process. Remember, I have told you that in the conclusion of this answer, you have to write the significance and importance of the Office of Attorney General of India, and make sure that the conclusion is positive and optimistic in nature, so that it can leave the examiner with the best impression about your answer. And the next important question is women's social capital complements in advancing empowerment and gender equity. Explain. Now, in gender studies paper 1 and paper 2, it is very common that questions over women empowerment, gender equality are very often asked. And in fact, microfinance, self-help groups are other important themes on which questions are regularly asked. Now here, women social capital, right? For example, when I say social capital, educated women, literate women, their health care and their knowledge, their awareness over the rights, so everything can be known as their social capital. So whatever social capital that women have acquired, the social capital complements in advancing empowerment and also gender equity. Right? So how this social capital will lead to the empowerment and the gender equity of women, and that is what you need to explain. So this is a very important theme and the introduction of this question. So firstly, you need to talk about the social capital. So what exactly is a social capital? And then in the body part of the answer, how the social capital complements to the empowerment of women. Now imagine that a woman illiterate and they know how to use the financial products, for example institutional credit, insurance, and so once they get the institutional credit, they can even start a micro scale MSME or any other industry, and through that industry they can also explore the marketing opportunities and they can financially independent. So don't you think it will lead to the economic empowerment of women? And economic empowerment of women will over a period of time leads to the political empowerment of women and the gender equity as well. Right? So in the conclusion of the answer, if you have any suggestions, if there is any committee which has provided for the suggestions to empower women, then you can mention those suggestions as well. However, it is true that the social capital accelerates inclusive development and gender equality among the women. Right? So make sure the conclusion is positive and optimistic, and so that it can create a good impression on the examiner. And in the introduction, what you need to write. So first of all, we need to talk about the social capital of women. Now in fact, the social capital among women refers to the networks that they have, the contacts that they have, the relationship among the women, and the existing norms and the trust. So this can actually enable individuals and the communities to function much more effectively. For example, a group of women have come together and they have established a self-help group, and they get the loans from the nearby bank, and the loans or the institutional credit, if they used in a right way, for example setting up a dairy farm, a poultry farm, or any other micro food processing unit, so they can be financially empowered and financially independent, and that will further leads to the social empowerment and political empowerment of the woman. So therefore the social capital for women is very important, right? So for women, social capital include the support system such as self-help groups, community networks, women collectives, cooperatives, and the informal associations that they have known over a period of time. And all these aspects play a very important and transformative role in advancing empowerment and gender equity of the woman, right? Because this is the key theme of the question that has been asked. And in fact, the modern societies where women often face the structural barriers to economic and political participation, because still patriarchy as an institution is dominating the woman. And in fact, the social capital at this juncture is very important and a crucial vehicle for the mobilization of women and their voice and their solidarity and even their access to the wider and larger opportunities. Even though it is not generally advised to write such a lengthy introduction, but you have to write the crux of this as the introduction in your answer, so that it can create a best impression about your answer. Now in the body part of the answer, you need to mention how women's social capital contributes to empowerment and the gender equity of women. Now in this context, you have to divide this question into a number of component parts, and you need to address each of these component parts with relevant examples and adequate amount of data. So firstly, it will promote the collective action and solidarity among the women, because we have already understood the meaning or the definition of social capital. So it means network, relationship, norms, and the trust among the women-based self-help groups. So therefore, women's networks can build unity, and they will have collective unity once they come together and work together. So therefore, it will result in they work for the common interest among themselves. The example is Self-Employed Women's Association. So this Self-Employed Women's Association in India has over 2 million women members advocating for better wages and the better working conditions among themselves. Now, whenever you write any answer about the self-help groups, it is always suggested and advised to mention the example of Self-Employed Women's Association. And then the social capital among women will also enhances their access to the resources and the wider opportunities as well, because the social capital enable women to access credit, healthcare, education, and the information, and it will further empower women in a multifaceted way. The best example was the self-help groups under the Deen Dayal Antyodaya Yojana National Rural Livelihoods Mission. So it has mobilized over 8 crore women in India, and in fact it has also offered women microloans and even the income generating opportunities and the hand holding support and the marketing support for the women. However, the financial inclusion improves the economic independence and their bargaining powers as well. Next, we need to talk about the leadership and the decision making capacity, because the social capital can also lead to the leadership and decision making capacity among the women. Participation in group fosters the confidence, negotiation skills, and the leadership abilities among the women. And this is very important and crucial thing. So one best example is women leaders in the Panchayati Raj institutions, because the 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment Acts have provided 33% reservation for women. So therefore, it emerged, these grassroots leaders have emerged from the local level through the collectives, so thereby enabling a collective decision making or further enhancing their decision making power in the families as well. However, detailed studies have been conducted, and those studies have been indicating that the areas where there are women sarpanchas, so those areas have witnessed the improved development indicators in many arenas. For example, education, healthcare, sanitation, hygiene, drinking water access, all these arenas. So therefore, it is clearly visible that the women sarpanchas are performing better and they are able to take better decisions when it comes to the overall development of those areas where they are working as sarpanch or the leaders. And then we should be talking about the political participation, because the social capital will also ensures their political participation. Right, so women's social networks encourage greater participation in formal and the political processes. The best example is in states like Bihar and Madhya Pradesh. Help group women have been instrumental in mobilizing voter turnout and also raising the rights and the awareness about the entitlements. Right, so it is always advised that in each of these points you mention the examples as well, and then it also provides the emotional and psychological support that is needed for the women. Right, so we are all talking about the social capital and how it ensures the emotional and psychological support, which is the need of the hour when we talk about the woman. Social ties among the women, so they actually offer emotional strength to deal with the domestic violence and discrimination or the mental health issues as well. The best example was Women's Collective in Kerala's Kudumbashri mission. It provides the safe space for dialogue and support, contributing to the overall well-being of women. And in the conclusion of this particular answer, you need to talk about women's social capital. It serves as a powerful engine for the empowerment and gender equity. So this is what has been asked in the question. And in fact, it fosters economic independence, leadership, social resilience, and the collective voice of all of which are essential and important for the woman empowerment. And in fact, in order to deal with these challenges or structural inequalities, these all are very important. And in fact, in urban and rural areas, if women have the strong social networks or the social capital, so they can actually catalyze the social change, reduce gender disparities, and they can also drive inclusive development as well. Right? So that's all for today, and thank you so much. So please subscribe and like this video. Thank you.